book lovers, book readers, book friends. Welcome to Read This Book. I'm your book hostess, LaShonda, bringing you this week's review of Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. Now, if you are a book reader, if you are a book lover, if you are a romance book reader, then the name Beverly Jenkins should be one that you are familiar with. If you do not know Beverly Jenkins and the greatness that she writes, then I am aghast. That is my aghast face and the sound that I will make if anyone says they don't know who Beverly Jenkins is. I feel sad for you, but let me introduce you to Miss Beverly Jenkins and into the world of which she writes. She is a phenomenal historical romance writer. When I tell you that she paints you in, she pulls you into her stories where not only are you reading it, but you are feeling it, you are witnessing it like you were there. And whatever time period that she is writing about, you feel like you were there, like you witnessed it. She writes stories that, yes, they are romance stories, but she writes in such a way where she gives you the history, she gives you the actual factual of things that happened during that time period. This story, Rebel, takes place in New Orleans. After the slaves were freed. They were called freedmen, so we're in the late 1870s, I do believe. And it's the story of Drake Levesque and Valinda Lacey. Valinda is from New York and she comes down south, one, to get away from her overbearing father. Two, she comes because she feels a sense of pride and a need to help her people. She wants to teach. She wants to be a teacher. She wants to open up her own school. So she came here at the help from the nuns at the nunnery, who were sponsoring people from north to come down to help, educate the race in the South. And she has some really unfortunate things that happen. The barn that she was using for a school gets vandalized. And from that vandalization, she meets Drake Levesque, who rescues her from a certain situation. And he drops her back off at the rooming house where she was staying, only to find out that the person that owned the house had died and her evil sister basically put her out, like literally was like, no, get out. And so she's left with no place to go but to find Drake. So Drake, she finds him, he introduces her to his mother, and she immediately takes her in. And it is at the point where Valinda starts to really think about her freedom and start thinking about the dreams that she have and how she can make them come true. She wasn't checking for Drake. She was not checking for him. Her experiences with romance and relationships was none, even though she was intended to be married to her longtime friend Cole. But it was a marriage of convenience for both of them for different reasons, but mostly for her because she did not want to be under the thumbprint of her father, who felt like women were only good to get married and have babies and do what their husband says. He barely wanted her to be educated. He really tried to stifle her spirit and stifle who she is. She was very curious, very, she wanted to learn. And so her coming to New Orleans was part of that, was gaining her freedom and to be able to stand on her own. But she also knew that she also had to marry Cole so that she would not fall under her father's thumb. So she is in New Orleans. She is in this place, and she slowly falls in love with the city. You know, again, at that time in New Orleans was a big pot of gumbo. There was all races there. There was black, white, Creole, French, Indian, Spanish, you know, Caribbean. There were all these people there that made this city, you know, as fascinating and interesting and horrifying as it was during that time frame. But she slowly falls in love with the city, as she slowly is falling in love with Drake Levesque, aka the pirate, who has a very interesting family history. So as she stays with his mother, she is seeing how strong and independent she is. And, you know, Miss Juliana owns businesses, and she's, you know, she dresses nicely, but she's not a snob. She is not about the classism, which is a big thing, you know, back in that time period where, you know, the Creoles, who were French and mixed with whatever else, you know, they were considered upper echelon than the lower dark-skinned slaves, you know, the freedmen. You know, they didn't want any association with them. But Miss Juliana and her family was not like that. They really embraced her. So she is, you know, learning more, and she is just enamored with, you know, who she can become and the ability to teach, you know, not just children, but men too. Because at that time, during that time period, you know, there was a lot of laws and things being put in place that, you know, even though the slaves were free, they weren't truly free. They were still being denied education, employment, just basic human necessities, things that we take for granted now. The ability to read. You know, there were laws in place that said that you still couldn't go to school. And so you're reading this, and you're reading this history, and you're reading, you know, the things that are happening to the people, and how so many of the race just wanted, you know, to find their families that had been separated. Some of them just wanted to be able to read. Some of them just wanted to be able to provide, you know, for their children in a better way. And so Valinda really felt like that was her calling. She was supposed to be in New Orleans. Meantime, you know, things are heating up between her and Drake. Drake is just really captured with her. And not because she's pretty, but he really, you know, enjoys her spirit, her sassiness, you know, the things that she wanted to do. She just wanted to lay out on a blanket and look at the stars. You know, she wanted to climb trees. And he was just so fascinated and intrigued by her, and that she was a grown woman, but she still just had these, it didn't take much to make her happy. She wasn't about social status. She wasn't trying to, you know, marry rich. She just wanted to live her life, and he wanted to live that life with her. So their relationship is progressing, and he's trying to remind himself that, wait a minute, she's engaged. Yes, her fiance intendant was in Paris, trying to get support to start a newspaper, and then when he came back, they were to be married. And so she's really like, I don't want to go back to New York. You know, I want to stay here in New Orleans, where I'm needed, where I have purpose. And she really starts to confront the feelings that she's feeling, and how she's going to break this news to her fiance, because if she doesn't marry him, then she knows that her father is going to demand that she returns to New Orleans. Let me just say that some things happen with Drake. His life is threatened. His livelihood is threatened. Just so many things happen. And every time something else happens, you see Drake and Valinda get closer. And when he told her he would make her dreams come true, and he showed her, she was gone. She was done for. You know, she knew then and there that he was the one for her. And he knew the entire time that she was the one for him. What I love about this story is that even in the direst of times, love still prevails. Love still rules. That you can find love when you are least expecting it. And that love is not always what you think. Valinda had no frame of reference for love in real relationships because she never saw her parents be happy. She never saw, a man treat the woman the way the Levesque men treats their women. She never knew that. And she was so innocent and naive to things, but she was still smart and still like, no, I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet. And she asked questions. Some of the questions and things she asked about had me rolling. But I had to remember that during those times, those women weren't as educated and know things that we know in this century. We know a thing or two about the body and about what men and women do in the dark at nighttime. And I loved that. I loved her innocence, but I also loved her curiosity. I loved Drake's strength. I loved his need to protect. I loved his way that he was with his family and his brothers and how he loved his mother. I loved just the rawness of this book. There were things that hurt my feelings, but there were things that made me just giggle. There were things that just made me just go, damn, how lucky am I that my ancestors went through all of this foolishness so that in the year of our Lord 2020, I could read any book I want. I have freedoms that they never, ever had to experience. So I am grateful to this book that she wrote such a powerful message of hope, of love, of being fearless, of chasing your dreams, and being able as a woman to stand on your own 2 feet and say what you want and go get it. I absolutely love this book. I mean, it's Beverly Jenkins, so what did I expect? I mean, I don't know. I guess in the year of our Lord 2020 and how weird this year has been, I just have such an appreciation for these little things. And I have such appreciation for the story that she has written. So I am grateful. I am grateful for Beverly Jenkins. I think I'm going to send her a love note. But for all of you that are watching this, read this book. It is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. If you've read any of her books, comment below and let me know what you've read. And I'll be fascinated to see what all you've read and how you appreciate the historical romances and the brilliance that Beverly Jenkins pours out for us. So until next time, read a good book.